Here we go, back on the Gill Athletics Track and Field Connections podcast. So humbled that you would press play once again. We are getting past 250 episodes. That's a lot. I'm super excited about our current season 5, and the guests we have and the guests that are coming up. I just want to send a recommendation, if you will. So there's 200 plus past coaches that have been here. This is going on for over 4, getting close to 5 years now. Go back and look at the backlog that we've had. There are many, many amazing coaches that you would love to listen to that are episode 20 and episode 100 and episode 201. Go back and check it out so that you're not missing some really amazing men and women who choose to be track and field coaches. And speaking of that, we got one today. And this guy today is a lot of fun because not only is he an amazing coach, we're going to talk about it, really an interesting journey. You're going to learn I think this might be one of the unique, after 250, there's not many unique ones, but this one might be really unique in regards to college and high school and college and coaching. And I think you're going to get a lot out of it. And I've been friends with this guy for means we're old, a long, long time here. So help me welcome the head coach of the University of South Alabama, the wise, the wonderful, Mr. Paul Brueske. Paul, how are you, sir?
Good. Glad to be here.
Yeah, you embody the wise and wonderful because not only, hopefully if we get time today about track and the amazing things that you've done there, but you do some pretty interesting, unique off the track activities that are, I think would shock a lot of people who don't know. I think everybody who does know it is always a little shocked. And so hopefully we get some time to delve into that passion that you have off the track as well, man. How's life in Mobile, man? I'm a Troy grad, so it's always a little hard. I've had a UAB coach, I've had an Alabama coach, Auburn. It's always hard to have some of these other schools in there. How's life down in Mobile treating you?
Good. Love Mobile. Everything's going great. My dad taught business at Troy University, so he had fond memories there, and everybody I've talked to who's gone to school there have enjoyed their time there as well. So we're all friends in track and field, a little more cutthroat in football and basketball, but yeah. I enjoy the coaches there at Troy. Good group of people.
They are good people. I agree. And I always knew that your dad was the smarter of the Brueskes there. So I get it. Hey, let's hop in because I want to, your story, I've known you for a long time. Your story is really unique. In fact, there's parts of it, I really don't know the beginning of it. So let's start there. Yeah. Why don't we talk about how does track start with you, whether it was as an athlete? You tell me, where does track start for you?
Well, I grew up in Gulf Breeze, Florida, and started doing track as a freshman at Gulf Breeze. And a great coach, Bucky Stringfellow, was my high school coach. Always had real competitive teams at Gulf Breeze, and I had some good role models, guys that were upperclassmen that took track and field seriously. And we always had a pretty competitive team. So that's kind of where it started. I enjoyed competing immensely. I did football, track, and weightlifting in Florida. And when it came time to college, I decided to come to South Alabama. And Steve Thomas was the coach there at the time. And things have changed quite a bit. He was basically a one-man show of a grad assistant. And he allowed me to be on the team, gave me a great opportunity. And that's when from Coach Thomas is where I, became interested in training and technique. He was a very good technical coach and still is. But that was that. My senior year, I wasn't setting the world on fire as an athlete, but I continued to stay with.
Is this senior year of high school or college?
Senior year of college at South Alabama.
Let's back up real quick. No, it's all good. Let's go back to high school because I'm always interested. We know what you are today. You're a college track coach. In high school, first of all, I know you said played football and powerlifting. Were you a thrower? You're one of the throws coaches. Yeah. Were you a thrower as well?
I was, yes. I did the discus and a little bit of shot put, but that's what I did.
And so when you were thinking about going to college and you ended up going to South Alabama, which I don't think I knew that you were an alum there, because I really have a soft spot in my heart for alums who coach at their alma maters. It just seems more authentic. You chose that school. So when you go to recruit, it's, there's a different spiel to it when you're talking to a recruit than someone who, it's just a job in a workplace. So I really do
Right.
love that. When you were going to college and you're thinking about going to college, what were you thinking about becoming? I don't necessarily hear that you were thinking about, oh, I'm going to be a track coach. I'm going into study kinesiology or whatever. What was the thought back as an 18-year-old?
Oh man, I was a big fan of the movie Lethal Weapon, man. The Lethal Weapon, Mel Gibson and all. I was going to be like a cop or a Secret Service agent, something like that. In fact, in college, I majored in, I was a double major in criminal justice and political science,
Okay.
and I actually interned with the U.S. Marshal Service my going into my senior year, and that's what I was going to do. But at the time, the baby boomers were still there was still a lot of baby boomers working, and they hadn't reached mandatory retirement age, so there was no opportunities other than the U.S. Border Patrol. And I was actually hired by the U.S. Border Patrol, midway through my senior year, and applied, went through the thing, and they, offered me a job, and I accepted initially, but then they wouldn't tell me where I was going to live, and I don't know if this is what I started having second thoughts about, living on the southern border and being a border patrol agent. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's what I did. As a senior in college, you do my internship during the day, or do track practice. And when I was an intern at the U.S. Marshal Service back then, I would shackle prisoners and fingerprint them and do interviews on them and escort them to the federal courtroom and
Wow.
all
In
that
your
stuff. So
in
yeah,
your
that's
internship.
what. Yeah, and they don't do stuff like that now, but I mean, it was crazy. These were federal prisoners, and I would go in there and, all right, let's go, guys, and I put shackles on them, and yeah,
Where,
and I really disliked it. I mean, it was just some of these guys were awful. There were some, I guess,
sure.
guys that probably made some bad decisions, but I didn't like it. It was a very negative, somber uh,
Yeah.
atmosphere, and I said, man, that's not me. It was depressing.
Yeah.
So
We're actually interviewing interview candidates right now. Actually, I have one later on today for our marketing and sales. And so, I'm gonna give them that story. Be like, hey man, this is internship's gonna be a lot easier than some other internships that I've heard of.
yeah, yeah.
That's amazing.
But it turned me off. It
Yeah.
turned me off to that profession. And here I am now in my senior year.
Mm. Oh,
What I had
right.
aspired to do, all of a sudden, I'm like, man, I don't know if I want to do this. And what do I do?
I've
And
said this 100 times. It is ridiculous to me that we make 18-year-olds choose their majors and therefore their supposed career path. This is a great example of it. You finally got a taste of what it really is, not just classroom. And you're like, oh my God,
yeah,
I think I made a mistake.
yeah, yeah. And I was scared. I said, what am I going to do? But it's funny how, things work out. During my senior year, my track career wasn't really progressing like I had hoped as an athlete. But I continued to do it, and Steve Thomas kept me around. But he also allowed me to, practice earlier in the day, and I started coaching part time at UMS Wright Preparatory School in Mobile. I started off, a guy named Chris Nemeth was the head football coach there, and he gave me an opportunity to coach middle school football, which I did. I enjoyed it. So this is pretty fun. It's not, he knew me from when I was in high school in Northwest Florida, and knew I was there, and he gave me an opportunity. Well, McGill High School, which is just down the street from Old Shell Road, they knew that I was coaching football at UMS, and they had an opening for a track coach. And one of my teammates' father, Angelo Harris, who was a longtime coach at McGill Catholic High, he gave me an opportunity to come over there and coach track on a part-time basis. So that's where it kind of started. I started coaching my senior year of college, and thankfully I had Coach Thomas allowed that and worked with me and let me do that. And so I really enjoyed that. And at the same time, as I'm enjoying that, I'm having second thoughts about this law enforcement career.
Yeah, you mentioned you mentioned on the law enforcement, the kind of I'm gonna call it the depressive side. We're dealing with people who make bad decisions, you're in prisons, things like that. Did you find an immediate, I'm gonna call it the opposite, sunshine effect when you first stepped out and actually started coaching other young people?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call it sunshine effect because
Sure.
there's going to be some negativity in that too. But you're helping people, and I like the idea. And look, God love them. The law enforcement are doing a tremendous service for the community and our nation, and
Absolutely.
and I have nothing but the utmost respect for good law enforcement. But it was just a negative vibe to me, and I don't like being around a lot of negativity. I'm still like that today. And whereas in track and field, you're helping people. And I feel good about helping people, helping them reach their goals, helping them be goal oriented, and hopefully develop some skills that will help them in life.
So I love that. And for those of us who know you, it's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense, actually. It's on brand, as some of the cool kids might say. So senior year, first of all, we have to give some props to Steve Thomas. He might be one of the more unknown great coaches in our great sport. A no nonsense, really good technical coach who has been around Florida, Mississippi State now, last, South Alabama, has done an amazing job. And really, I remember the time at South Alabama when he was the one-man show. And let me tell you what, that was a good team for one dude trying to do it at all.
Yeah, I still look back and I just like, I've been in situations, where it was two coaches when I was at Ferris State University. Later on, we'll get to that, but it was me and the head coach, and that was tough.
Yeah.
How he did it, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and
Yeah,
he was a very good knowledge of all the different events.
Oh,
So
no doubts. No doubts at all. Okay. So senior year, you're having, for lack of a better term, second thoughts on the career because of the internship. You're coaching. That seems to be a little bit better, a little bit more of your style of helping people. We're being positive, things like that. You still graduate and got to figure out, am I going
yeah,
to go
I got
into
to find a job.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got to find a job. So I go to Angelo Harris, the longtime head coach at McGill, and again, his daughter Jenny was a teammate of mine at South Alabama, and I said, look, I don't want to join the Border Patrol. I'm having second thought, but I got to have a job. I said, is there anything available at McGill too? I didn't have a teaching certificate, so he said, yeah, let me work on that. So they hired me. They offered me a job and it was I still wasn't sure. Maybe I might get into law enforcement, maybe not. I just wasn't sure. I knew I didn't want to do the Border Patrol. So they gave me an interesting job. I was the in-school suspension coordinator, the retrack coordinator, as they called it. So I dealt with the kids that got in trouble during the day. I decided to go to grad school and I got a master's. I was working on a master's degree in public administration. And I coached football, freshman football. I was a head freshman football coach, and I coached track and field at McGill Tulane Catholic that would have been 98 to 2000. And I really enjoyed it. I mean, it was wonderful, and the in-school suspension part was, it was okay, but it allowed me during that time. Basically, I was in study hall all day, and I could do all my schoolwork. So I would do my schoolwork, have practice in the afternoon, and a couple nights a week I would take graduate classes in the evening. And it was, I wasn't having much fun. A lot of my buddies, I graduated in 4 years. A lot of my buddies were on the 5 and 6 year plan and enjoying life. And I was getting up first thing in the morning and going down to McGill Tulane Catholic High, and yeah, so that's how I got into coaching, and I still wasn't sure
Yeah.
if I was going to do coaching or do something with the, like a federal agent or something. But I enjoyed it, and I said, man, I really started taking an interest in it. And anything I do, I try to do it the right way. And at that time, I started really studying, buying books. I did the USA Track and Field Coaches Education Program. I really started doing educating myself and I had the benefit of the USA Track and Field Coaches Ed program that was very helpful. But I was studying and reading and doing the training theory and I would go out to, at the time, Brad Bowman was the head coach at South Alabama. He took Steve Thomas's place there, and I would go out and, even though I wasn't really a sprint guy, I would go out and watch the training and, pick his brain on training stuff that they did, and anything to do with training, whether it was weights or speed or any of that. I was a real sponge for it. I was just trying to constantly improve my knowledge of that. So
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was a question I wanted to kind of delve into. I know you as a very technical coach, and not just technical with the throws. You talked about the weight room, and you and I have had discussions about sprinting and jumping. Like, you really, like, you have a different mind frame when it comes to training and athletes and the whole picture. And you mentioned how this is now starting really early in your career. You're devouring every book, coaching education. Where does that come from? Where does that, like, I'm going to throw myself in and learn it? Because you'd have been excused to just coach the way you were coached, which, by the way, was pretty high level. Steve Thomas, for crying out loud, and in your high school side even. But where does that, like, okay, I am going to try to learn it all, so to speak, if I'm going to do this?
well, I've always considered myself to be fairly competitive.
Mm.
Um, I want to win, and it goes back to being the best you can be. And as an athlete, I wasn't the most gifted athlete, so I was always trying to figure out a way to get the most out of what I had. And so part of it's there. And I was looking at this stuff even as a high school kid. I mean, when I was in 8th grade, I subscribed to Powerlifting USA magazine. I was just kind of a different guy, on that. So I've always had an interest in training and that sort of thing, because I wanted to be successful.
How come you never changed academically in college? Like,
I
never
don't
went?
know. I look back.
Yeah,
If I had to
yeah.
do over again now, again, I don't know why. I always had an interest in training, even like I said, even as a middle school kid. But I don't know. I kind of wanted to be like an action guy, like a Secret Service agent
Yeah,
or a
yeah.
customs agent or something like that. One of my friends' dads was a U.S. customs agent. He used to tell me about his job, and I just thought that was really cool. And honestly, if I would have had that opportunity to be a special agent with a customs service at a college, I may have done that. It just,
Mm.
again, at the time, the baby boomers there's a lot of them, and there just wasn't many opportunities.
Mm.
And I just was in that age bracket when I came out, but it all worked out I think, for the good, because
Yeah.
I very much like my chosen career path.
Yeah, you wouldn't be on this podcast if you had gone that route. So this is working out pretty good
Yeah,
for
yeah,
you. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. All right. So you're working at McGill Tooling. You're kind of, a common theme we do hear amongst coaches a lot of times when they first get into coaching is they cobble a lot of jobs around to coach until the big break, air quotes there. So you're in school suspension. You're doing your own master's school. You're coaching football and track. What's the big break, or is there a big break? What's the next step after, as you continue through that route?
Okay. I, I wouldn't call it a big break,
Right.
but I said, man, I kind of want to coach college. The McGill thing at the time, there wasn't any teaching opportunities, and I wasn't going to just do in-school suspension for the rest of my life. So I started applying for college jobs. In fact, during that time period, you and I talked. I was looking at possibly, you were the head coach at Neosho Community College, and you called me up and you're telling me about that. And I'm like,
I said, do you want to make $500 a month?
Yeah. And I'm like, I was seriously considering it.
And basically be in school suspension. You had to be the dorm monitor as well. So that's basically kind of the same thing.
Yeah, and I was very serious about that, but I got an interview, or I got a job opportunity. I couldn't get it, not being a national champion or All-American, and there wasn't a lot of opportunities to break into college coaching. I wasn't a GA anywhere, and this was kind of a late career change or early career change, however you want to do it, because I was still young. But a guy named Jeff Cavalunas at Ferris State University offered me an opportunity to go to Michigan, to Big Rapids, Michigan, and be the field events coach at Ferris State University, which is the Division II school in the GLIAC conference. And I was just so excited that a college would give me an opportunity. It wasn't a whole lot of money at all. And, it was far away from home, but I said, I'm up for the adventure. And I went and visited there in August, which Central Michigan in August is absolutely beautiful. I mean, just gorgeous, great climate. Everything was just, I'm like, wow, this is great. Meanwhile, I was still in the, starting football season in Alabama, sweating my head off and hot and humid and all that. And I said, man, this is great. And my dad, who's from Michigan, my dad's from Minnesota, he was shaking his head. He's like, you don't have any idea
what you're August, about to get buddy. Into. It's August.
Yeah. And I'd visited the North, but I hadn't spent much time during the winter. I'd never really been through snow or anything because I grew up on the Gulf Coast. And my dad, who grew up in Minnesota, knew all about it. He would tell me stories, but it didn't register with me. So I took the job, and it starts off great. And I guess around late October, it starts snowing. We start moving indoors, not seeing the sunlight. And but I enjoyed every second of it. I didn't, I thought I knew a little bit about track when I went up there, but I didn't. I learned a lot up there. And you were competing against, in the GLIAC, it's still a great conference, but you had Grand Valley State, and Coach Baltes was just getting started at Grand Valley State and had a tremendous program even then. And Judd Logan, the late Judd Logan at Ashland. And man, I'm right off the bat, I'm like, whoa, I had to really step it up. And, I came in, and luckily I had some good athletes and had some success, but I had to learn on the fly, and I had to coach pole vault, the horizontal jumps. In fact, I used to contact you a little bit. Hey man, give me some advice on triple jump. I don't know if you remember that, because I didn't do any of those events. And what a great experience it was. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of college coaches today, everybody kind of specializes in an event area. And at Ferris State, it was a tremendous opportunity. It was a tremendous amount of work, but I coached the vault. I coached the horizontal jumps, the high jump, the throws, did all of that. And it was really good. And the kids got better. The kids that worked and were coachable got better. And I learned a lot. So it was an invaluable experience. And I'm very grateful to Coach Cavalunas for giving me that opportunity at Ferris State University. And I still have friends in Big Rapids, Michigan. I went up, visited a few years ago. Great place, really cool school. And I'm forever grateful for that opportunity. But, after 2 years, I was really missing Mobile, and I was really missing the Gulf Coast. My family still lives in Northwest Florida, and I have a lot of friends down here. And I said, man, I had some interviews at some different universities and pretty good opportunities, but I miss Mobile. Mm-hmm. And I was down doing a summer track clinic or camp, and Pat Galley, who's been at UMS Wright Preparatory School as a track coach for 52 years, still coaches there. It's amazing. Um, he offered me a job at UMS Wright.
Well, okay, pause
to
there.
come in and yeah.
Go back to Ferris, because one of the things that I love to do with the podcast with our different guests here is I like to bust myths. And one of the myths out there is that high school coaches can't coach college. There's many excuses, not reasons, excuses. They can't recruit, they don't know how to coach that level, yada, yada, yada. Now, typically, when we see a high school coach that moves on to the college level, they're more of what I would call, air quotes here, traditional high school coach, meaning they're a high school teacher. They've done it for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. They've recruited those hallways. They got a great class, great team, etc. You're a little bit less traditional. You weren't teaching there. You're doing the ISS and things like that. What do you think it was with Coach? I'm so sorry. Tell me the coach, Ferris State's coach name,
At the time, it was Jeff Cavalunas.
Cavalunas. What do you think it was with Coach Cavalunas that I'm going to say took a chance on you? But why you? What did he see in you that you don't even coach half the events, by the way? What was it about you that he was like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna take a chance on this guy?
I don't think he had a lot of other candidates, to be honest. To be real frank, I don't think he had much. There wasn't a whole lot of interest in the position at the time. I think that position is improved, and I think they're paying better now. But at the time, that was I don't think there was to be real frank and honest, I don't think he had a lot of opportunity. So it worked out for me. And like I said, I had some All-Americans there, some D2 All-Americans, some conference champs, and learned how to coach pole vault. I would, it was funny at the time. I had a VCR right by my bed. I had a basement apartment in Big Rapids, and I rented from this retired professor. And but anyways, I had this VCR and a television right by my bed, and I would watch Earl Bell pole vault videos, and I would watch these different VHS or VCR tapes. Each night I would play and memorize the cues and watch, the plant drills and all these things that were foreign to me because I never did any of that. But I really wanted to help our athletes out. So I did the best I could to learn it, and they all improved tremendously. My knowledge was limited. That pole vault's a funny group because when you ever go to a track meet, and this is not a slight against pole vault coaches, but man, I've never been around a bunch of know-it-alls. When you go to the meet, they're all experts, and they all,
and so
yeah, so it was interesting for me.
Coach Brueske can be reached at PBRUE.
No, but I mean, I learned a lot, man. And I guess my point on that is all these pole vault coaches at these meets, they come up and they want to help you and teach you. And I learned a lot from them. I guess that's my point. It wasn't meant as a slight. But
I am curious. We want to bring as much value as possible to those who choose to listen. And I think that coaches get this opportunity, at least this opportunity is presented to them quite often, this opportunity of coaching other events. I think to your point, I think you made a great point there about, we tend to specialize, we tend to pigeonhole ourselves. Myself, I'm thinking back to when I interviewed with Sue Parks at Ball State University, coming off of Neosho County. And, I was a sprints and hurdles coach. I had to coach the long and triple and things like that. And in Neosho, I had to count, much like you're talking about, I had to coach everything, I go and I interview, and I remember, Sue, who is also a Gill podcast alum. You mentioned Judd Logan as well, another podcast alum. That back library that I'm talking about, guys and gals, it's stacked. It's stacked. You got to go back and listen to these amazing people. I remember Sue was an amazing, 800, 1500 runner, but also a really good high jumper back in the day. I knew that during my research going into the interview, right? And so when she was talking about the events that she would want me to coach, she's talking about the sprints and hurdles, multi, long jump, triple jump, and the high jump. And I was like, yeah, that'd probably be better for you, coach. And she's like, no, I really want to focus on the distance runners. This position needs to do,
Yeah.
you don't have to do pole vault. We have we have a pole vault coach, which I was like, oh, thank God. At least I got that off my plate. But I remember there was a good 5 minutes in the interview, and I am pushing back going, I think maybe you should do that. I did not want to learn that. It just was out of my comfort zone, right? So I lost that battle, by the way. She's like, no, you're going to coach, you're going to at least give it a try. And, if we have to make changes, we'll make changes. But
Yeah.
she did give me that safety net, which that's not very Sue Parks's, but she did give me that safety net. Anyway, I go there, and lo and behold, I'll still say this today in 2024. High jump is my favorite event to coach now. Like I much like you, dove into it, watched the tapes, called a lot of people. Cliff Revelto, hey Cliff, how do you do it? You're one of the best high jump coaches, and really fell in love with the challenge of coaching the high jump. So I think that is presented to a lot of coaches, but there is a lot of fear, some rightfully so. It's always fear of the unknown. You seem to have, like, talk to us about your mindset. Was there any fear of, like, oh my God, pole vaulting? I don't know about pole vaulting. And what did you do about it? You already kind of gave one example of, like, well, you know what? I pressed the play on the VHS tape every stinking night.
Yeah, every night I did it. I mean, Earl Bell and, I talked to Drew Bentley, who's, very good high school pole vault coach in Mobile. And I would call him, hey man, what do I need to focus on? The run and the plant. And that's what I did. My guys, they had good runs and they had good plants. But yeah, so I just,
were you fearful of any of
again,
it?
Uncomfortable, not fearful. I was
Yeah.
uncomfortable with some of the jumping events, but I again I felt obligated to learn as much as possible. I really don't like it when coaches, and you see this a lot at different levels, where I'm not really this or that, and it's like they just use it as a cop out and not try and learn. And I've always said, if I was in high school and they made me coach the soccer team, I would probably quit after the end of the year. But I'm going to go and try and be the best soccer coach I possibly can. And there's so many resources now that weren't available to us 25 years ago. I mean, even Instagram. I'm bad about scrolling through, but I love seeing the different drills, and sometimes it reminds me of a drill I did 10 years ago, and for whatever reason got away from. That would be perfect for the problem that so-and-so is having right now. So
you mentioned with your pole vaulters, they were going to be really good run-ups and really good planters. I hear the basics on that, and that's not a slam. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Did you kind of use that philosophy?
I just focused on that because I didn't. The pole vault is a tough one, and I'm really blessed to have some great. Worked with some great pole vault people. Drew Bentley at McGill Tulane. He was just starting there when I did. And at South Alabama, I had Randy Flock when I first got here, who was a great pole vaulter himself and did a great job with our vaulters. And then Lyndall Farmer, who's our current vault coach, but Aaron James, who's a pole vault guru. He still helps us out on a part-time basis. So I because of that experience that I had coaching it, I've always made sure that a lot of schools shy away from pole vaults, but I think pole vaults, it's important to have good pole vaulters in what I'm trying to do. So
you had some really good throwers there as well. I remember you had did you have, if my memory's right, did you have a really good, like an outstanding women's discus thrower? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, for the time, she was pretty good. She's actually her name is Tiana Kirkland, and she actually coaches basketball at University of Illinois now.
Oh, no way!
But she was she was on the track team. She did track, and we had 2 or 3 volleyball and basketball players that were really good athletes at Ferris State that did 2 sports, and we would get them after basketball season or whatever. But Tiana, I was real fortunate to have her. And she was an All-American in shot and disc, and a D2 All-American. And then she got into coaching basketball, and she's done quite well with that. I need to reach out to her. I haven't talked to her in a long time, but last I heard, she was at Illinois, and I think she's been there for a while. So
Yeah.
very,
As soon as you said, it's like, well, I have to reach out. She's right here in my town. Yeah, that's so
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
So do you
Yeah,
think,
Tiana, yep.
and, we're as we continue through the journey, we're going to learn just again many other Tianas, many other great athletes that you've coached. Do you think this early, because this is still early in your career here, do you think this early forcement that I'm going to say you're forced into it, of having to learn pole vault, high jump, long triple, etc., do you think that made you a better throws coach as well in some form or fashion, or is it just
Yeah,
like,
there's so many commonalities between all the field events, and believe it or not, there's even, when it comes to training theory, there's commonalities, with seemingly totally different event areas like distance and throws. I mean, there's some general principles in training theory that are somewhat similar. But I think those commonalities help, and it may be, whether it's the javelin, you're talking about the block, and you think about the pole vault or the high jump. There's some things there, and the rhythm, the slow to fast rhythm, in all the field events are similar. But I think it was very helpful.
would you recommend young coach, and maybe not even, maybe we take out the word young, would you recommend to other coaches to at least, depending on their age and stage of their career, dabble in other events, at least
Oh
pay
yeah,
attention?
yeah, and man, I have a kind of a secret desire to coach the multis, but it's just not working out for me to do that
Yeah.
here. So I love coaching the throws, but I've worked with a couple of occasions, worked with some heptathletes, and man, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But no, I think for a young coach, you need to, and I've tried to tell guys I've had to come in as GAs or whatever, I've really encouraged them. People get in their comfort zones and what they know and what they were taught,
Absolutely.
and they don't want to branch out. And I tell my coaches all the time, said, man, by you learning the jumps and the hurdles and these technical events, you're you're making yourself a more valuable commodity,
Oh,
and
for
you're
sure.
giving yourself for potential employers if you move on. I think you're making yourself a more valuable coach for a staff because you can do multiple things. Um, again, I think that's one of the unfortunate developments in track and field. You used to have guys like Jerry Clayton, Steve Thomas, and who could coach everything.
Mhm.
And now you're seeing less of that. Everybody's specializing. And it used to be, when they had split programs, when you and I started off, the SEC was
Mhm.
still mostly split, gender divided.
Mhm.
And you would have a field coach, a running events coach, and a distance coach, something like that.
Right.
And you had to coach everything. I mean,
Right.
Ron Tiffin at Alabama, he coached everything.
Mhm.
And he's a heck of a coach. But you're seeing less and less of that because of the way we have set up. So it's a positive, because I think you're seeing some really incredible performances in the college level now by these specialist coaches. But I think there's something lost there,
Mhm.
with not having the opportunity to coach those other events.
Yeah, it's a good point. There's certainly an argument versus going extremely deep into one area of track and field, where it's throws, jumps, whatnot, versus being a generalist. And I tell you, some of the top coaches that we've had, from Brooks Johnson, Harry Mara, they talk about, you're not a throws coach, you're not a sprints coach, you're a track coach, because of a lot of the similarities that you talked about
Mm.
amongst all the events. I've heard people argue the javelin is more of a horizontal, like a long jump, triple jump, than it is
Yeah, it is.
a
Yeah,
rotational, like the discus shot and,
yeah,
hammer. So, okay, so
yeah. It's definitely.
you're up in Ferris. You survived 2 winters up there. Bravo. That should be, there's your Cub Scout batch. That's a big deal. But you've also, people even at this time in the track coaching profession, scratch and claw and wish and dream to coach college. So you made it, air quotes. You made it, and you decide to go back home, and the opportunity to go back home is to go back
Yeah.
to the high school level.
Well, yeah. And I had some college opportunities at Ferris, but At the time, it's gotten better. By the time those college assistant jobs weren't paying a ton of money
Mhm.
at some of the other places, and I was like, man, here I am, mid-20s, and I don't want to keep living, having roommates and all that. And I really missed the Gulf Coast. I really missed Mobile. And so then I had this opportunity to work at a really great high school, UMS Wright Preparatory, and with a great tradition in track and field, and they had some really wonderful athletes at the time. And man, I was like, yeah, what direction do I want to go? So I just wanted to go back south, and be closer to family and friends, and so I got that opportunity to coach track and football at UMS.
Uh,
And right when we get there, I'm the defensive line coach for
yeah.
the football team. We won the state championship in football first year coaching. So
Easy
everybody
peasy.
jokes about that now. I just kind of, yeah, man. So I enjoyed that. I
You know,
enjoyed that. And the great thing about UMS Wright, getting back to this multi-sport thing, I'm not a fan of specialization at all. And at UMS Wright, I love that place because the kids did multiple sports. Our football team was our track team, was our baseball team. I mean, these guys were doing everything, and they were good athletes. But I think part of the reason why they were good is because they weren't specializing. They weren't getting burnt out on football or track because they were doing other things. Just about the time, football season's over and they're tired of that, well, it's track season. Or they were playing basketball. And I really saw the benefit of being a multi-sport athlete. And I think it's a real travesty that high school, not some schools really do well with this, but it's becoming rarer and rarer. Their kids are specializing, and you're seeing a lot more injuries. You're seeing a lot more burnout. Me personally, because of that experience, I like to see athletes that do, if they don't do multiple sports, multiple events in high school. And I really like to see a guy that, plays, or a woman that plays multiple sports in high school. I think that's really important. And I think it's a great value to, or benefit to, an athlete to do different sports and not specialize too soon.
Now you still don't have a teaching degree. So what are you doing besides coaching D-line and track and field? What are you doing? You go back to
I'm
ISS?
working on at that time. No, so I no, I think my day job, I was like uh, permanent substitute. I think that's initially what my job was.
Yeah.
And during this time, I am working on my teaching certification
Okay.
while I'm at UMS, and I do get my teaching certification in physical education and social sciences. And I taught. It's funny. I did everything from elementary PE. I had one of the coaches was on maternity leave, so I had to go and be the elementary PE coach,
Yeah.
man. And there wasn't any physical entertainment in my class, man. We were on the monkey bars and doing pull-ups, and I would have them do sometimes. If it was nice out, we're not inside playing dodgeball. Some of the other coaches like to do dodgeball. I wasn't playing dodgeball. I'd let them do a little bit of that if after they did their physical activity. And the teachers loved me because I would run these guys. We'd play sharks and minnows and stuff like that. And what they didn't realize, I was turning it into a game, but we were really doing some type of interval training. So, anyways, at the end of and then I would have them do, kickball or something fun for maybe the last 15 minutes of class. And they would go into class and they would be limping back into class, wore out. And the teachers loved it because the other PE classes were playing dodgeball, and the kids are wired when they get back into class. My guys were quiet, and they were tired, and yeah. So that's what I did. And then the teachers said, "What are you doing with these? This is great. They're wore out." Whereas the other classes, the kids are bouncing off the wall. So
You didn't make
I had one kid. I really took this as I had one kid tell me, because it was tough because the other kids are just playing dodgeball all the time. And then one kid came to me and he goes, "You're the meanest coach ever," because I was wearing them out every day. And I'm like, yes, I am, so.
You didn't make them do square dancing, did you? I never could figure out why we had to do
No,
square dancing in elementary school PE.
there was no square. No. I think we did the same thing when I was a kid, but
Yeah,
no, I didn't.
I
do
don't
that.
understand that at all. Yeah, that's I hope that's completely taken
Well,
out of
that was
all
really interesting.
curriculum.
A lot of those elementary kids some of those elementary kids ended up being college track athletes. So yeah, it was kind of cool. I had one guy made it in the NFL, and I ended up teaching at UMS. I taught nutrition, seventh grade
Wow.
nutrition, and I this was interesting. Um, about 2 weeks before class, the then principal came to me and said, "You're going to be teaching economics." Told me about 2 weeks
Dude.
before school. I didn't know anything about economics. So I would go into the same as I did with pole vaulting. I would go into the other teachers who taught economics, and I'd be taking notes beforehand and, just learn as best as I can and just go in and hope no one asks too many questions afterwards. But yeah, I taught economics and government, and yeah, so I did that.
I
And we won
remember.
we won state championship every year on both genders in track and field as well at UMS under Coach Galley.
I remember this conversation when you're going from Ferris to UMS, because I remember specifically you were the defensive line coach for some reason. I just like I sure distinctly remember that, and I remember having multiple conversations with you over the years that you were there, the state championship, and for football and for the tracks, and the teaching. And I remember like I was just like, "Are you sure, Paul?" Like when our first initial conversation, when you're like, "Hey, I'm going to go back and coach high school in Alabama." And I was like, man, are you sure? Because I'd made it to college coaching. It was like, like I was so green and naive back then. It was like I couldn't fathom going back to coaching high school. I started my career coaching high school as well. And it was like, man, you're here, Paul. Like I know it, I know you're making $2 now, but man, just keep going. And we're gonna be head coaches in the SEC one day, bro. The dream, right?
Yeah,
And you were like, no, I think this is
yeah,
right for me, man. First of all, I do remember you saying, hey, man, I got to get back to warmer weather. I miss the area. I need to, that's, I got to get back there.
yeah,
But then as you were doing it, and I remember talking to you during these different conversations, and you were having success. I don't think at that point I was still um, equally comparing success on the high school level as college. To me now today it is this. I don't care that you're successful or not successful athletically, because you're impacting young people positively. That to me is the most important part. Whether they win or not, what are you doing for these kids that are going to go on to be fathers, mothers, business owners, teachers, etc. But it started, but you were happy. I just remember that there was definitely a
yeah,
difference between conversations with you at Ferris and conversations with you now. And he was like, oh man, I'm having a blast. We're
yeah,
doing this and we're doing that. And the kids are doing these different sports. It was like, oh my gosh, like, I mean, there was a little bit in the back of
yeah,
my head was like, did Paul crack the code? Like he seems way happier than I am right now.
yeah. And I've talked to some guys. In Alabama, there's some guys that used to coach at the University of Alabama now coaching high school at the Northridge coach, for example, and he raved about coaching in high school. Look, I've been very fortunate, whether it was McGill, Ferris State, St. Paul's, UMS Wright. I'll talk about St. Paul's in a
Mhm.
minute. I've enjoyed every place I've been, and I was never really looking to move on. It just opportunities came, and I couldn't turn down. But I was very happy at UMS, and I just as happy as I was I loved the coaching at Ferris State and McGill Tulane before that. I enjoy that, and to me, there's different aspects. There's parts of college coaching that is wonderful, and I like where we're at South Alabama, because you can take a kid you see potential in, and you can develop them, and that's a lot of fun. Where you get these guys where they're going to and successfully competing against the other conferences of the country.
So give us some of those opportunities that came at you. You were at UMS, you're doing well, you're winning state titles, but you ended up going to
Yeah,
a
so
different school.
I got my teaching certificate, and I said, man, I'm single, and I was at the time, I was like, maybe I should move around a little bit, I was offered two jobs in Central Florida, one at Deltona High School, went down and visited that, but then I was offered when I went down there, St. Paul's Episcopal School, which has been a powerhouse in
Powerhouse.
Alabama high school track for years, they caught wind of it. And I wasn't, I was kind of, I don't know if I want to leave Mobile, and I like Mobile. And so they gave me a great opportunity to come to St. Paul's and coach football and track. And I was the head boys track coach. Jim Tate was instrumental. The coach Jim Tate, who's now retired, but
Legend.
a longtime track coach there. He allowed me to become the head boys coach at St. Paul's, and he was the women's coach. And so I go there, and we have a lot of really talented. I have a team picture of the women's team we had there, and we worked together. I helped with the field events for the women, and he coached the male distance runners and all that. So we worked really well together, just like I worked with Coach Galley at UMS. And man, we had so many kids that competed at the college level off that team. In fact, the team that I had at St. Paul's would have done very well in the Sun Belt Conference. That's how talented we were. Wow. We had kids that ran at Duke and multiple kids at Alabama, UAB. Wow. Almost the majority of our team ran collegiately. We had girls, a couple girls that. One girl was an All-American at Ole Miss. Another girl was a middle distance runner at Ole Miss. Wow. We just were loaded with talent, and we had some SEC champions, some All-Americans that were on that team at St. Paul. So, man, I was still competing at a very high level at the high school level. So,
were you still coaching all the field events, or did you move more towards just the throws at this point?
I'm coaching the field events there, and I would help with some of the other events, but at St. Paul's we had more coaches, and I was kind of moving back more to where I was the head coach and would just fill in as needed, but really more the getting back to more of the throws.
Any point of you have an eye towards college coaching at this point, or is it like, oh man, you got some really?
I was perfectly.
Hold on, because you got some great examples in front of you. You talk about Coach Galley, come on, legend. Coach Tate. Legend. I mean, you've got some guys, so you have some things right in front of you that show you that you can coach for 20, 30, 40 years on the high school level and be very, have a great life. So you have those kind of examples in front of you. Any eye towards but they're still college.
It was always in the back of my mind, but I just didn't see many opportunities at the college level at that particular time. And I was perfectly content at St. Paul's. I mean, I was planning on just making it a career at St. Paul's. It was a great school, wonderful support there, and just a great place to work, just like UMS was, just like McGill was. And again, I was happy at all these places, so I really wasn't looking. But South Alabama, we were winning state championships, boys coach of the year and all that, and at St. Paul's, and at the same time I had kept in touch with Mr. Joe Godfrey, who was the athletic director at South Alabama, and Pam Young at the time was the assistant athletic director, and they were having some issues, and they contacted me and said, hey, would you be interested in coming back to South Alabama? And that was a great opportunity for me to come back, as you mentioned before, to come back to my alma mater. Right. And so I was about 30 years old and become a head Division I track coach at my university. So and I didn't have to move to do it. It's just right down the street.
Yeah, that's key right there. I want people to hear that. So you went from a head high school coach to a head college coach. I don't know that this matters, but maybe this adds to the weight of it, I guess, but it doesn't matter. A head Division I college track coach. It doesn't matter if it had been a D3, D2, NAI, it doesn't matter. He became a head collegiate coach. So let's talk about the myths, right? I told you there's a lot of myths that, high school coaches can't coach college, et cetera, et cetera. Here you are, you're not even going in as the assistant coach, and you've got, you're an assistant for 5, 6, 7 years, and you learn a lot, and then you become the head. You sit down at the big boy's desk right off the bat. What were some things that as you look back now, what were some things that were challenging of like, oh, okay, never had to deal with this, so I had to learn. What were some challenging parts?
Well, anytime you come in and there's the initial couple years was really tough
Mm,
because we were transitioning, what we emphasized as far as event areas. And
okay.
um, it just, it was just my predecessor did things differently than I did. And he was successful and a good coach and all that. But so, anytime you have a transition and you're kind of in a different direction, you're going to resistance to change. So that was tough the first couple of years. But um, fortunately, I was able to get in some good recruits, and I had some good people here at the time that helped with that transition. And it was tough, though. I mean, the first year or so, I'm like, man, I may have screwed up. I was
Mm,
doing pretty good at St. Paul's. What am I got myself into? Because a lot more pressure, a lot more uh, things like that to deal with. So it was a transition, but I stuck with it. Um, and it got better and better and better. And we got some good people in, good recruits, and um, we started having some success. And that was very rewarding. So,
you mentioned, changing the culture of the program, not only the culture as we traditionally think about it, but the events that you're going to stress or, put more scholarship into, et cetera. What about kind of back of the house, off the track stuff? Was there, scheduling now? And you scheduled
oh
probably,
yeah, yeah.
travel though. That's a difference. Scholarship allotments. What was challenging there that you had to overcome? And you've overcome it very well. You're very successful now. But what were some things that was like, oh
Well,
man, this is hard?
well, yeah, scholarship distributions and learning how to do that, and then like team travel, booking hotels, and so I had to do all that initially. We didn't
Mhm.
have at that time the number of staff we had was limited, so ordering uniforms and shoes
Mhm.
and going through all that. And but with time, you know we've been allocated more resources, and I have a full staff that makes my life a lot easier. But it was tough because I was doing all that.
Mhm.
I remember when I first got here, one day I was coaching the pole vault, a distance runner. I was timing a distance runner and coaching the throws simultaneously. And I'm like, I was like, how did Steve Thomas do this? I have no idea. But I was doing that, man, initially, and then I was able to bring in some assistant coaches that could take that weight off of me, and then we started. There was some setbacks here and there, but for the most part, we were moving in the right direction. And yeah.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the growth of the program in a second, but I want to ask the reverse question because I think what you're expressing there about like, man, I didn't do on the high school side, I didn't do some of these things, and now I have to. Oh, and by the way, I got to do all of it. Like you had some help probably at the high school level, but I want
Yeah.
to ask the opposite side because it's not 100%. You don't know how to do job and it's learning on the job. There were some things you were very competent at. What did you find easy? Like maybe you even thought it was going to be hard, but you're like, oh, okay. I'm used to this. I know how to do this. What did you find kind of more easier to do as your new role in the head coach of the college?
Well, we didn't recruit, contrary to popular belief
Right.
in high school. I didn't
Yeah.
really recruit, but I had some recruiting experience at Ferris State, so I wasn't completely foreign to that. And I did some other things at Ferris State as well, so I wasn't completely
Hmm.
green, but I was definitely green, and I kind of had to kind of grow into the position. But I really enjoyed recruiting, and I didn't. Some people talk about how hard it is. I don't think it's hard at all. I think it's about talking to people. As you know, I don't have any trouble talking with anybody, and um, I look at it differently. I'm very honest in the recruiting process. I tell you how it's going to be. I don't sugarcoat things, And if I'm going to lose someone, if what I'm saying doesn't appeal to them, that's fine. I'd rather learn that on the front end
Amen.
versus you come here and say, well, you told me this and this and this and So I like to be very honest and look for the right fit for South Alabama. I think there's a right fit for what we're doing.
Did
So
you
I think
find
that was easy.
Did you find much difference in the coaching? Meaning, well, you had more assistants at St. Paul in UMS when you first got to South Alabama, but the actual athlete, you're dealing with 14 to 18-year-olds in high school, 18 to 22 in college, but the actual, just the, how you coach, how you talk to the athletes, what you throw at them, how much, did you find much difference there?
Yeah, that's the tough part, because in high school you're essentially teaching these kids from scratch. They may or may not have a little bit of macodium of experience before they got to you, but in high school you can teach a kid from scratch. And I enjoy that. I still enjoy that. That's part of the reason why I enjoy coaching the hammer throw. Is most of the kids that I have didn't do it before they got here, so I can teach them the way I want to teach them and guide them right from the scratch, versus having to undo things that that or there's different ways to do things, as you know. But no, that was tough. And one of the tough things about college is, particularly if you get like an international athlete that's already been well coached, your job is to get them better, but do no harm. You don't want to go backwards. And I've seen a lot of coaches thinking they're going to fix someone's technique and make them better and make them worse. So I've tried. It's a science, but it's an art form, to get someone who's already pretty good, and you got to keep them going in the right direction. So that's always a challenge. You got to be careful that you don't overcoach someone, and sometimes you think you're going to fix something, and you're going to make it worse. So I try to, I've had some experience with that, and most of my guys get better, and I just think you got to be careful on that, and that's a difference. Whereas if I get a kid from Alabama that maybe only been doing the sport 1 or 2 years and did multiple sports, I'm going to treat them a little bit differently as far as how I approach their training and technique development.
How many years now at
Does that answer your question?
No, it's perfect. Yeah, it's absolutely. Yeah. It's good to see people see that it's not just, when I first wanted to get into college coaching, I thought it was awesome because it would be awesome to coach college because I got to pick everybody who was on my team. So I'd go pick out all the greatest people. And, you kind of have a smile because you're like, yeah, that doesn't, that's especially, I didn't go from, coaching high school to University of Florida. I went to Troy. So it was like, oh, by the way, we were just starting our program back up. So did not get the best athletes out of high school. There's a lot of teaching and things like that. And everybody I wanted didn't come to school at Troy for some reason. So it's good to see that people understand that, the different levels that there is and that there was. How many years now at South Alabama?
This is my 17th season. I came over in December of 2007.
Yeah. Okay.
So the 2008 spring was my first season as a coach here, but I've been through 17 track seasons.
So in 17 seasons that you've been there, South Alabama track and field has grown in lots of different ways. The number of staff you have, I'm very hopeful that your budget has increased, opportunities to travel with your team. I know you've gotten, new track surfacing, things which you sorely needed 10 years before you got there, by the way, but, upgrades and things like that. There are a lot of people listening right now that are in different stages of where you've been in that 17 years, and not saying that you here at year 17 that, oh, it's perfect. You have everything, all the budget and all the staff and yada, yada. But they're in programs, whether it's high school or college right now, that are starting from scratch, from very little, maybe they're in the middle, but they're always working towards growth. You've had a lot of growth in the South Alabama program. How has that occurred? What are some things that you did to help bring in an extra coach, that you had to prove to your administration? Maybe it was just straight fundraising. I don't know, but there are some things that you had to do to kind of unlock additions as you've moved up to where you are today. Help us understand maybe some of those things that might help other people that are listening.
Well, I think the most important factor of that has been, the support of our administration, starting with Joe Godfrey, and then, within 2 years, Dr. Joel Erdman, who's my boss, is athletic director at South, came in, and he is just a great athletic director to work for. And I'm not just saying that because he's my boss, because he's really good, and he's very fair, and he's very supportive. Now he expects results, but he's going to do within his power. He's going to do what he can to help make sure that we have the things that we need to be successful. And he's always been very fair with me and very supportive of not just track and field, but all the sports. So I can't say enough good things about him and our assistant athletic director, Dr. McCarthy, and my sports supervisor, Jason Kelly. These guys are really sharp guys to work for and work with, and I'm really blessed to work for some great people like that. So I think the answer to you is I say, hey, we're trying to do this, and they're like, okay, let's see what we can do to support. So I'm very happy, and that's part of the reason why I've stuck around here for so long is that we I talk to some, I'm not going to name names, but I talk to some people, and they don't express that sentiment about their support at their respective schools. But I feel like I'm very blessed here at South Alabama to have really good academic and administrative support, and really good. And great thing about Dr. Erdman, he was a baseball coach, so he knows kind of what you're going through as a coach. So you can talk to him, and he gets it. So very blessed to have that support. So I think that's the main thing right there. I mean, they've been very supportive.
So I'm hearing good communication with your administration.
Right. And I try not to ask them too much,
Yeah.
But
how do you, okay,
so when I do
that's a great question. How do you balance that? Because we all have dreams and wishes of the totality of everything, right? And we know we don't want to just be like, oh, I'm just happy to be here, I'm glad they give me a peanut to run the track. How do you balance that requests / demands of administration, pushing your program forward, but also realizing you're part of a department? It's not all centered around track and field.
That's right. I mean, I try to just remember that that we're not the only team on campus. But again, Dr. Erdman makes it easy. He's asking you at the end of the year, what do you need? What can we do to help you? He says it every year at the end of the year meeting. He said, what can I do to help you?
Wow.
And he really tries to do that. So again, I can't brag on him enough. And it's not just him. I think our senior women's administrator, Jenny Frisbee, Jason Kelly, who's my sports supervisor, they're all the same way, man. And so I don't really ask for much. I try not to, because I don't have to. We cover that at the end of the year meeting each year, and we work towards doing that. And sometimes it might take a little bit of time, but they've always delivered.
I love an administration that is always asking you, hey, so what else do you need? I'm not promising it, but if I don't know what you need, well, I can never, I'm just guessing. So help me out. I love that. What a great,
we have projects that we're working on now. Yeah.
That's a big star for your administration.
We have projects that we're working on now. Yeah, we got projects that we're working on now with expanding the track weight room. So that's something we're moving towards, and working towards raising the funds to do that and make those improvements. So again, there's no complaints.
One more question before we go off the track to talk about just a fascinating subject to wrap up today. But so before we get there, tell me, I grew up in the Alabama system, Alabama high school track and field, and then, many years at Troy University. And now I've got, really good friends, best friends at the head coach of South Alabama, University of Alabama, just all over Sanford. Rod's an amazing guy. Just some really great coaches in that state. What makes South Alabama different? You guys, you're a thorn in my side as a Troy alum. I see kids that you get, I'm like, well, God bless, why don't they go to Troy? And, I see, team results. You guys have had some fantastic success. I'm like, man, what makes it different? What makes it special? Is it all about the beach?
Well, there's not, I started thinking about this. There's not a lot of universities in the country that are so close to the beach. We've got Dolphin Island, Orange Beach, Gulf Shores, Pensacola Beach is not far away. So we're right on the Gulf Coast. So I think that's a selling point. But we have some kids from the Midwest that that was a big selling point, but it's not as big a selling point as you would think. But I definitely point that out, and that's something unique about South Alabama is our location. Warm weather. It's a young university. We're only 60. In fact, this is our 60th anniversary. So I always describe it as a young and upcoming university. And because it's young, we have modern facilities. Our dorms are new, and we don't have these 200-year-old dormitories where everybody's sharing the bathroom down the hall. I mean, it's modern facilities, modern buildings, and it's really exciting how far this university has come in the 17 years I've been here. I mean, when I have old teammates or alums that come back and visit, they're just shocked, especially ones that haven't been here in 20 years, how much building and development the campus. Our campus is really nice campus now, and it's improved so much over the years. And so we got great academic programs. We're one of 2 medical schools in the state of Alabama. We got one of the largest nursing schools in the country. And we've got a comprehensive degree program. So it has everything. I always tell recruits that we have everything that you need to be successful academically and athletically. And we've had national champions here. And we've had Jan-Lo Kotze was a first-team All-American in the discus throw and had the highest GPA of any athlete at the NCAA championships a few years ago. So we've had a lot of really good success. We've had kids in the U.S. Olympic trials. We've had Olympians. And you can be successful at South Alabama for sure. But no, this is my home. I mean, I love South Alabama. It's more than a job to me because I went to school here. I got my undergrad degree, my master's degree. I'm working on a second master's degree in history right now. So it's just a really great place. So.
Well, that's a great segue to the off the track conversation I'd like to have and explore. A lot of times if you listen to the podcast, I work very hard at delineating that, the person who chooses to be a track coach. I sometimes think, my experience when I talk to coaches around the country is we make this coaching role our number one thing. It becomes our entire identity, and we forget about other roles like being a mother or a father or a brother or a sister or a son or a daughter, other roles like your passions and charities, things like that. And so one of the more interesting parts to me about Paul over his coaching throws, which he does an amazing job. And I love watching his athletes, unless it's at conference. I don't like watching them then, but Paul, so you're getting a second degree in history. And not only are you a history buff, it's one thing to be someone who likes history. You have taken that not one step, 2 step, 3. You've taken that several steps. You are an author, a speaker. Like, I'm shocked. I really couldn't remember what you majored in college. I really thought you were a history major. So tell us a little bit about this historical side, this passion you have for history, specifically the history of you talked about this being home, the history of your area right there.
Yeah, I've always had an interest in history, particularly local history. Just something that I always had an interest in, and the interest has grown over the years. Now, having said that, 25 years ago, you and I could not have had any kind of conversation that didn't revolve around weightlifting or speed training or technique or training philosophies or anything like that. I was very unbalanced, and it wasn't good. You need to have balance in your life, and I found that what we do is all consuming, but I think it's healthy to have some balance, and I think that's why I've never really burnt out. Is I have other things that keep me balanced. And history has become one of those things, and I've done a lot. Kind of started off as a history buff, and I feel like I'm developing into more of a historian. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm working on it. Like I said, I'm doing my graduate degree in history right now. I'm working on a thesis, and I'm learning a lot. But yeah, I've written articles for the Alabama Review. I've done book reviews for the academic journals. I've given tours, local tours. Whenever somebody comes into town, they might have had an ancestor that was in an Illinois regiment that fought at Spanish Fort. They'll contact, hey, would you show me? And I would take them through the neighborhood where that battlefield was and show them, well, this is where this happened and this is where that happened. So yeah, I just have a real interest in it. It's just fascinating investigating and digging, and it reminds me a lot of when I first started coaching, reading articles written by successful coaches and that sort of thing. So it's just something I did. Started off as a hobby, and I enjoy doing that. I've written a book, The Last Siege, about the campaign for Mobile in 1865, and I've got another book coming out in probably late summer, early fall, about the Battle of Spanish Fort, where I live, which is a suburb of Mobile. So,
yeah, I love it because in the track world, when you are describing, watching VHS tapes every night and reading articles, no one bats not in our circle, right? We all go, yeah, of course, it's what we do. People outside of our circle, outside of coaching and coaching track and field would be like, wow, what a nerd. Like, really? You would like, I would watch The Survivor and you instead would watch VHS tapes of some guy
yeah, I don't
named Earl
watch.
Bell, right?
Yeah,
It's kind of the
yeah,
same thing. I
yeah.
think some people are listening right now and hearing about, reading articles and writing book. Come on, writing a book is hard. Writing a book about this and go, wow, what a nerd. This is your passion, and it's grown, it's kindled and
No,
continued
I
to
enjoy
grow.
it. Some people like watching television. I don't watch a whole lot of television. In fact, I think I'm going to have to get rid of my TV. I couldn't turn it on. I bought it in 2003, and whenever I watch it, I have to unplug it from the wall to turn it off. Now it just doesn't turn on, so I'm going to have to go ahead and get another one. I just don't watch a lot of television. I don't have time for it. If I'm not recruiting or writing training programs or whatever, I'm reading history. And like I said, I'm in grad school. I'm doing a thesis on a Hungarian exile from the 1848 Hungarian Revolution that came to America and fought for the Union, even though he was a separatist himself in Europe. But he's fighting against the separatists of the South. So I'm looking at, why did he do that? Why would he, and so I'm doing a lot of digging and reading, and like I said, I've put together this thesis, and
Wow.
the history professors in our department don't quite know what to make of me, but I think as they get to know me, they're coming around to kind of figuring out what I'm about. But at first they're like, what's going on here? Who is this guy?
Yeah. You pulling my
So
leg? Come on.
I love challenges. I love challenges. I love investigating and researching, whether it's track and field training, or methodologies or training methods. I love, seeing why people do what they do and the methods that are involved. But there's a lot of that in history. What I need to do? I need to probably write a book about track and field history in the United States, or
Yes.
NCAA,
Now
or something like that.
that's a book I would read. Absolutely. Sorry,
Yeah,
I can't get into the history of Spanish Fort and Battle of Mobile. I can't do. I'm the anti-historian. I can't do it.
right.
Okay, Paul, leave us with this. You said something really interesting to me. I wrote it down. You said I was very unbalanced. And I see this as an issue with our coaches today. I'm a huge coaching advocate, so I'm always looking for ways that how do we improve the people who choose to be track coaches? How do we that it's not all about the X's and O's and track and field. That you have to be, I don't want to say well-rounded, but boy, you got to be rounded. You can't be square. You said I
Yeah.
was very unbalanced. How did you come to that realization? Like, what was the self-awareness that hit? And now we know what you did once you realized that. Like, okay, I'm going to start. I like history. Someone start looking at that. Was there an acute event, or was it just a chronic over time? How did you come to that self-awareness? Because we need this in our profession.
Yeah. Well, again, three of my mentors told me this. Jim Tate told me this. Pat Galley. Pat Galley was critical for me having a little bit of fun and not being so serious all the time about track and field. I mean, he really helped me in that regard. But Jim Tate was concerned about me because I was just 24/7 track and field and coaching, and and he was concerned that I was going to burn out or whatever. And Angelo Harris used to make fun of me about all that. Just took it a little too seriously. And I've seen coaches that have come in and were like really gung ho initially, and then they burn out. And so I was always aware that I was unbalanced, but it just kind of happened organically. I've always been interested in history, but I would, just curious. Well, what happened? How did we get to this point? And, whether, and again, local history was the thing that really fascinated me. So, there's a lot of stuff that happened right here in the Mobile Bay Area, Gulf Coast, and it's just fascinating to me. I don't know why, it just is.
I hate that this conversation had to come at the end, because this may be the most important part of this podcast. You talked about you kind of always had the self-awareness. I think a lot of coaches have that are unbalanced understand it, but we just can't, I hate to use the analogy of like an addiction. Like I think of people who are addicted to whatever realize they're addicted, but can't or won't take the next step to get healing.
Yeah.
And so for you, it took some mentors to kind of push you over that edge a little bit of be like, hey man, so you're seeing this as well. Guess what?
Yeah.
We're
And just
seeing
to
it.
have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's extremely
But
important.
I think balance, whether it's, whether it's your faith, family, yeah. So I
Do
think
you
all that's
think
important.
do you think you're a better track coach now that you have more balance than before when you were just 1,000% into the coaching?
I think so. I think so. And I know how to handle, I don't get so stressed out about certain things as much as I did before. Because and a lot of that's experience. There's not a whole lot I haven't seen at this point, and I know how to handle different situations. So I'm more comfortable in my role now, and I think that balance is important. Again, whether it's faith, family, or in my case,
History.
all of that, faith, family, and history. So that kind of keeps me even keel and balanced, and I think that's important for a coach to find some other things besides what they're doing.
I think it's critical. It's more than important. When I see a new person getting into coaching, that it's kind of like it's you mentioned faith. At our church this past weekend, we had baptisms, and it's a big party at our church because it's like, oh, someone new to the family, etc. It's the same feeling I get when I hear of someone becoming a coach. It's like, oh man, more track coaches. Like these are the greatest people in the world. So
Yeah.
more is better. And I see them in their first year 1, year 5, year 10, and it's like, hey, but I really want to see you in year 25 and year 30 and year 35, because that means the amplification of the number of positive impacts you made on young people is tremendous, not just 1 year, 5 year, et cetera. So I think, if you're listening right now and any of that resonates with you, if it doesn't resonate with you, I'd kind of recommend you rewind and just listen to it again, really soak on it. I think great example here, go to your mentors. That is key that's key in life. That's definitely key in our profession. Go to your mentors. They call them blind spots for a reason. Some things are blind to you, but others that you really trust and love and have friendship and family and fellowship with, they see these things, and sometimes they don't want to hurt your feelings, so they're just not going to say it. Sometimes you need to ask them, like, hey, so where do I fall short? What would carte blanche? We're still going to be best friends after this. Where am I falling short? And that is going to help you become a better coach, a better friend, a better father, a better family member, a better everything. So Paul, I appreciate your just kind of openness and honesty about that. That's extremely valuable for our listeners to hear. All right. We are out of time. Thank you, brother. We are out of time. Paul, I love you to death, brother. I've known you for a long time. I'm so glad I didn't hire you at Neosho because your path.
Yeah, me too.
Your path is tremendous. I've seen what you've done at South Alabama. And I hate it as a Troy alum, but I love it. I've seen the kids that you have in your team. I've seen the staff that you surround yourself with. You're doing a tremendous job. And I think it's really important for people to see these type of roles. Unique here. I don't think we've had a single person go high school, college, by the way, and had joy and success each way. And
I've loved every place I've been.
Yeah.
Every place I've been, I've been really, really blessed.
Love it.
I've had friends that had careers in other fields, made good money, but were miserable.
Yeah.
Miserable. And I can honestly say, man, I am itching to get to work.
Love it.
I'm here before 7:00 and stay as late as I need to. But yeah, I'm very blessed to have been able to do something that I really enjoy.
I love it.
Every place I've been.
It's evident. It's evident. Well, go scratch that itch, get back to coaching. Thank you so much, man. I realize, asking for any amount of time, especially in season, is extremely hard. And I'm always humbled when, coaches can give us that time here. And so I'm just so grateful for your time and your openness and authenticity today, Paul. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike. Take care, man.
I appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys being here. Join us next week. We'll do it all over again. Maybe we'll find a college, high school. I don't know. We'll find some other combinations. But you keep coming back. We'll keep bringing you the value. Appreciate it, everybody. Have a great week.